All right, so we do have a mystery guest today.
Okay.
Jamil, you have no idea who it is.
I know you.
Even want to try to take a guess?
No.
You can't even possibly guess.
No.
All right, come on in, mystery guest.
Hello.
No way.
How did you talk? Yay!
Cynthia. Sit down, girl. Come on, let's have a good time.
Can I do my other entrance?
Can I just say I'm so proud of you?
Thank you. I saw your post. I was like, oh.
Goodness.
Oh, I haven't seen your post yet.
Oh, you haven't?
I'll have to go look that up.
Okay.
Okay, here's my second.
Okay, wait. We got another entry. Okay, go.
Move up the microphone. Can't
Oh,
hear you.
my bad.
Bill, say whatever you said now.
Say it, Bill.
Oh. Come on in, mystery guest.
This is what democracy looks like. Democracy looks like.
Oh
Brilliant.
my gosh.
Brilliant.
Oh goodness. Okay. Okay. I already cleaned headphones and everything. We ready to go. Let's talk. Ooh wee.
Oh, and do we have stuff to talk about?
Yes, we do. Oh my goodness.
All right, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome to episode 61 of Black, White, and Blue in the South, the podcast discussing Democratic politics with a Southern flair. And already Cynthia's taking notes. I just gave one sentence and you're already writing down notes. That is so distracting.
Thank you for being here.
Now I need to know what those notes are about me. She's already criticizing my delivery.
She is not.
I'm Bill Kimler.
I'm Jamil Brooks.
And I'm Cynthia Halpin Brown.
And we're coming to you from Greenwood, South Carolina. Now, Jamil, you're writing
No,
notes.
I've been writing the whole time.
What
I
is this
can't
with you
help
two
it.
note takers?
I can't.
We're coming to you from Greenwood, South Carolina, a little red county in a very red state. If you like what you hear and think others ought to be listening as well, then you need to hit pause right now and leave a little rating for our show. Write a little review. Tell your friends about us. Interact with us on social media. Or better yet, please provide some dating advice for single adults who are trying to navigate this world in today's very divisive political climate. You see, you can't just hop into a first date with somebody without knowing a little bit about them and their core beliefs, right?
Yeah, add that question.
So thankfully, a TikToker named Ms. Curly McCatlady, that is her name, she provided this useful guide of questions to ask while on that first date to tease out the political beliefs of your potential partner for life.
Let's see.
Let's hear what Ms. Curly McCatlady has to say.
Thanks for coming to get me. I was wondering, I need to pick up a couple things. I was wondering where you think I should pick them up from. Target or Costco?
So I'm going to pause right here just to explain what we're hearing and seeing. So it shows this woman entering into the passenger seat of a car, and as she's getting in, she asks the question. But at the end of the question, are we shopping at Target or Costco? She looks right into the camera.
You got to give him the look.
Right at the driver. What's that answer going to be? So let's hear what other scenarios.
Okay.
Whoa, that food from that restaurant was really good. Expensive though. Probably because of the tariffs. Okay, I'm ready. You mind if I put on a little music? Okay, great.
It's the face that she makes when she looks right at the camera.
Definitely.
Here comes another one.
Whoa, it's a little chilly in here. Do you think it's a little bit chilly? Whew. I'm gonna put on my scarf.
She just put on a red and white Palestinian keffiyeh, right? Just to see what the dating partner is going to say. That face. I love that face.
I love it.
Oh, it was so nice to run into my friend. I haven't seen her in a while since she moved out somewhere by the Gulf of Mexico.
Yep.
Whew. Thanks for picking me up. I really got to get myself a new car. I was thinking about getting a Tesla.
Curly McCatlady, hats off to you. That
I'm
is
adding
exactly.
her. I will be following her.
That is exactly what we need. Let us know what you think and what questions you would add to Ms. McCatlady's list of dating questions by dropping us a note at blackwhiteblueinthesouth@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Mastodon, and Blue Sky. So go check us out and take a look at those award-winning show notes in your app where you can find links to all of those accounts, news items, and more. Well,
I like that one, Bill.
Jamil, let's start off our episode on a happy note.
Okay.
That's very rare for me, by the way. So
It
I'm
is.
going to break code and go into happy mode.
Okay.
Because we got a pair of reviews for our show that I want to share with you.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
So first, from WolfCat8,
Okay.
that's the user. I doubt that's that person's real name. But WolfCat8 commented on our Weaponized Ignorance episode with AJ Davis. You
Okay.
remember that? So that was a couple months back.
Yeah, it was.
WolfCat listened and wrote the following. AJ laying down the numbers. I remember a Democrat telling me, quote, "We don't have the numbers." Well, AJ's math proves otherwise. That was a very good quote
Yeah.
from WolfCat8.
All right.
Second is from an account called Crime_Coco. Crime Coco, who wrote, "We need more of Bill. That sexy voice and even sexier intellect drives me crazy. Jamil is nice, but she's a distraction."
He did.
All right.
Nobody wrote that.
Okay, I made that up.
I
You're
knew
right.
it.
Here's the real quote from Crime Coco. All right, I need a little pick-me-up even if I had to write my own. But here's the real quote. I'm assuming Crime Coco wrote, "Found on TikTok, followed on here, and instantly fell in love.
Cool.
I am trying to follow state politics, and this is gold. Sending love from Aiken, South Carolina."
Yay.
So thank you, Crime Coco. And if you want to write that other review too, I'll copy and paste
It's
that your way.
transcribed for
Yes,
you.
thank
Just
you.
paste.
Let's pause a second. I'm hearing train in the background, right?
You do.
Did you come here by train, Cynthia?
I did not.
No,
Cynthia
not your train.
said she
I would
rolled down
love
the
it
window and
if
yelled
I
out,
could.
"Follow me," and they followed her here. The train.
All right, I think we're good.
Let's go.
Well, Jamil, this episode comes before a weekend that is very important in our personal lives. So I just wanted to share that. What do you got coming up next weekend here?
Oh goodness, this will be graduation prep. We've had one down, another one coming up.
So this is the eldest graduated from college?
Yes.
And this one coming up is
The baby, the last.
high school?
Yes.
Graduation.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
In the mix of two birthdays, so they have month has May has really been a month. So
And then there's Mother's Day in the mix.
yeah,
And,
somewhere in there was Mother's Day, but it was smothered by birthday, graduation.
man, that's
It's
amazing.
exciting stuff though. So
It is.
Yeah.
It
What
is.
about
well,
you?
congratulations
Thank
to
you.
everybody in the Brooks household.
Yay!
My daughter will be married
Oh, wow.
by the next episode. So this
Wow.
weekend, or no, in 2 weekends, May 31st, she will be a married woman.
Wow.
I'm not old enough to have a married kid.
Oh,
And I don't know if I can handle being father of the bride.
but you're going to be.
You're going to do great.
And she's amazing, by the way. So
She is. And this would be Amanda, former guest on our
Yeah,
show, as a matter
yeah,
of fact. One of our
Amanda.
favorite episodes. But she is tying the knot, my first child to get married. And to be honest, I don't know how I'm going to keep a dry eye throughout that whole thing. I am going to be an emotional mess.
Yeah.
I'm tearing up right now just thinking about it. Like I imagine what it's going to be. And it's going to be me with snot dripping down my nose as I'm walking her down the aisle. That's what it's
that's
going to
your
be.
baby.
I'm going to grab her dress and try to wipe it off, you know.
you'll be in so much trouble. No, she'd probably be like, here.
So last weekend we spent up, not the daughter, but me and wife and little girl went up to Greenville to shop for clothing for the
Okay.
wedding.
Okay.
I had to get a particular suit. It had to be a specific color to match everybody else.
Yeah.
Then you had to get the bridesmaids' dresses
Little
and all
girl
that.
is beautiful, by the way. I saw her on the picture and I thought, oh my God, she is such a beautiful girl. So
She
yeah,
is.
shout out to her.
She's
okay.
a doll.
Yeah.
I had to go get a new suit jacket. They had the jacket that fit. They did not have a corresponding pair of pants that fit. And so I went online to find, here's the brand, here's the color.
Yeah.
And that store did not carry it even in their warehouse.
Ooh.
Nothing in that size for me.
Wow.
And so I went to Macy's. Macy's found it.
Okay.
All right. So I ordered it online a week ago. Well, I'm checking and I got a notification that says shipment's on the way. I'm like, great. So I go look it up and UPS is telling me label created, not yet picked up.
Uh-oh.
And it's been 7 days of label created, not yet picked up.
Yeah.
And this sucker's supposed to be delivered by Monday.
Where's it coming from?
Who knows?
Oh, crap.
It's Macy's headquarters, wherever it's coming from. So I called Macy's support, and Macy's support's like, oh, yeah, it's probably just a glitch in the system. I'm like, yeah, your all system says I'm supposed to get it on Thursday. I haven't got it yet. And I've got this label created, not picked up thing going on.
Yeah.
I'm betting that there was somebody who didn't do their job. Well, she says, well, let us know by the 20th if it has. I go, I don't want to wait till the 20th because, first of all, the pant sizes, I'm in this awkward pant size where because it's always even numbers. And one even number is a little too loose.
Yeah.
One even number is a little too tight.
Okay.
So I opted for the little too tight
Okay.
to say, all right, I'm going to lose me some pounds
Okay.
between now and the wedding. I just have to lose 30, 40 pounds and I'll be good to go.
Wait now.
I have to fit in these pants. Otherwise, I'll be crying for a different reason walking down the aisle. So there may be some drama there where I end up pantsless. I was
going to say, just have the photographer do waist up.
Right, I'm going to have everybody
And
keep their
everything-
eyes waist
yeah,
up too.
Everything's going to look normal.
So I'm a little nervous about that. The other thing that's going to be that is of interest is that the young man she's marrying, and he's a wonderful guy. I've known him, perfect for her. I couldn't be happier.
Okay.
He's the son of immigrants from El Salvador. And El Salvador is a nation that has been in the news recently as being a terrible place of deportation. And so the two of them have had the talk. And it's funny how different ethnic groups, different cultural groups are having to have the talk about the society we live in. And they've got contingency plans in place where part of his job is to travel throughout the country because he does speaking on health administration. But because of his looks, because of his name, that's going to be another thing I have to get used to is that my daughter's last name is going to go from Kimmler to Guzman. Guzman. Now, she's also wondering if she wants to change her name because of the political climate. Like, this wasn't even a question for her, but now she's wondering for her own safety and for everything else to change it or not. It's a legitimate concern that just is a sad reflection of the state of our country. It really is.
Wow. Congratulations, Amanda.
Cynthia, I'm going to have you scoot again a little to your left. You're leaning to the right, and I'm going to make sure and move your camera right in front of your face.
Oh, your microphone.
Your microphone, thank you, the camera. There you go. The microphone. Perfect. All right. Well done. Well, Jamil, we are going to go into our standard kickoff topic.
Got it.
Your South Carolina representatives at work.
Is it really work?
Well, today I'm going to bring up a tale of two budget requests, something I found very fascinating as I sit down and watch these committee hearings. And what I want you to do, Jamil and Cynthia, is imagine that you are an elected House representative and you're sitting in this budget committee. It's a subcommittee. And you're taking testimony from department heads about why you should give them the budget that they're asking for. And you have limited funds. So they really have to make their pitch. First up on this pitch is Mr. Kevin Schwedo, who is the executive director for the South Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles. You ready to hear from Kevin and his pitch for money?
Yes.
Here we go.
Modernization's the only thing that allows us to go ahead and to take a entry-level employee and make them as effective as they are. When you realize that these men and women have 444 different transactions that are all written into law, and they have to be expert in everything from probate law to tax law to real estate law, it is the computer that speeds things up and keeps them accurate. And that's where we need your help. The computer system that we're using right now, Phoenix, came about before the turn of the century. Okay, it is coming around in the late 90s, and it was an amazing piece of work because it took lines at the time of about 4 hours and got you down under an hour. That was a very, very big deal. And then we've done everything we can to streamline it, and we have streamlined it faster than most states. At one point in time, we were down to a 5-minute initial wait time. Because there's only so much you can do, my times are climbing right now. everything that we do, and when I say everything we do is with a computer. If the computer shuts down, you get zero service from the DMV. There's nothing I can do without this computer. Not one of you would operate a home computer on 1990s technology. There's not a computer company in the world that goes and provides updates to those computers.
All right, so that was pitch number 1.
Okay.
Pitch number 2 comes from Howie Knapp. He is the executive director for the South Carolina Elections Commission, talking about increasing worker pay, or poll worker pay. You've been a poll worker?
Yeah.
Cynthia, have you?
No.
Okay, I've been a poll worker.
Yeah.
The pay's modest,
Yeah.
but it is what it is. So here's Howie Knapp making his case.
Priority 7 is $4 million in recurring funds to increase poll worker pay, basically. And there's two main graphics on this, current and proposed increase for poll worker pay. So right now, poll workers are paid $60 for training, $75 for working on election day, and $135 for working on election night. And that's the total is $135. We want to increase that to $175. I should note that poll worker pay has not increased. It's increased twice since 1999. The last time it increased to the current $75 was in 2017, and before that it was 2000. It was $45.
All right, Jamil, you heard 2 pitches. Actually, we'll turn it to our guest, Ms. Cynthia. Who would you pick to give your money to? You only had $100. Do you give it to Kevin Schwedo with the DMV or Howie Knapp with the SCEC?
I would go with the DMV.
Why is that?
More getting people in and out, having to take off time from work.
So you're going
That's
just based
a lot.
on the merits of the argument.
Yes.
Okay.
And that technology.
Yes, that is a scary thing.
There's a lot of information that the DMV has, so we want to make sure it stays secure.
Absolutely. 90s technology scares me. Scares me. All right, Jamil,
So,
who had the better
Ooh.
pitch in your mind?
okay, see, you asked me the question differently.
I did.
The better pitch came from the DMV, but I would give my money to the voting commission.
That is an unexpected answer. Why is that?
Because I've worked as a poll worker. And
So if you had worked as in the DMV, you would have given them the money. So it's based on your personal experience.
yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is, and not only that, but I know from the manager standpoint how difficult it is to find people who are willing to come in and work the polls. And so you have a lot of people who would say, "Well, my poll closed, or I went there and it's because of staffing issues."
Well, how would you compare the pitches, though? I think that's where I want to go now.
Oh, the pitch was, first of all, it didn't seem like the voter commission, really wanted the increase themselves. There was no connection. I didn't get the passion, and that didn't appear as organized or well informed. But the DMV
Right,
person knew it.
he had his report in front of him, but he kept flipping pages all
Yeah.
over the place.
And if you listen to that 135, that number was the first time that he said it, it was you get 135 because you get 70 for this and 75 for this and 60 for something else. And then you got another 135 for working voting nights. And I went, no. And then he said, no, it's 135 total. So, the second one just did not present as though they worked for the place that they were requesting money for. Whereas the DMV guy knew it and was very convincing and would easily get the money.
And when you see the video on our YouTube channel, you can see that Kevin Schwedo never looked away from the legislators,
No.
never looked down at any notes. He
No.
talked right from the top of his head, was very clear, very direct, gave the reason why.
Yeah.
Then Howie Knapp never looked up. He never looked at the lawmakers, never lifted his eyes from his notes.
He never gave the reason why.
Right. He just says, we want a raise,
We want a raise.
but didn't give any consequence to not giving
Yeah.
the raise.
So I can give the why because I know.
Yeah.
And you can give the why because you've worked it. You've seen the shortages that we run into about scrambling trying to find poll workers so people can exercise their rights.
Right.
But if you're on that panel that they're presenting to, they wouldn't know that.
I also heard his sigh at the beginning. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
I was like, well, we want to give them more money. I was like, wow,
It's
there's
my turn.
there's a guy I want arguing
Listen,
on my behalf.
He was like, well, I don't want to, but they said I got to say it.
Well, and I've been to the polls where there's people standing around. There's so many workers. So if I'm coming in from that perspective and not hearing that there's a need or there's places that have closed because there's no workers,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, why is he asking for more money?
Yeah,
That's a very good point.
that's a good point. Yeah.
Well, Jamil, we're going to shift away from that
Okay.
and go to some news.
Let's go.
For up-to-the-minute reports, stay tuned to this station. Now the news.
See, Cynthia, we're a professional outfit here. Are you impressed?
I am so impressed.
This is
It's like
neat.
I feel like I'm watching the magic. It's like I'm in behind the scenes at Disney.
Well, we're going to quickly touch on a couple of topics.
Okay.
Just to update on some of these subjects happening in South Carolina that we've been covering for 2 years now. And they're starting to wrap up, as a matter of fact. So
Okay.
first up on the list is an update on the liquor liability insurance issue.
Okay.
So to recap the issue, we have been losing insurers in this state who are not willing to cover bars and venues that serve alcohol
Yes.
because of some other laws that were put in place by South Carolina lawmakers back in the day to be more victim friendly in terms of payouts, but that has put, I think, undue burden on some of these venues who may have served only one drink and now they're on the hook for the full amount as the same bar that served 100 drinks.
Yes.
So the whole equity of blame was out of whack. There was no way to get discounts on insurance rates, and insurers started to either raise the rates or get out of the business, and bars and venues started to close.
Okay.
So we've tracked this in progress over the years, and happy to say that finally a bill has passed and has been signed into law by the governor that specifically addresses it. And there was a great write-up in the Index Journal, local paper here in Greenwood.
Okay.
The author was Renee Ortiz, and she did a fantastic job on this. This is a writer who's covered us a couple of times.
Yeah.
She always gets my name wrong. She gets my title wrong. She had me as the ex-chair when I was still the chair, right? But when it's anybody else she covers,
Yeah.
she does a phenomenal job. So this,
It's just you.
it's just me. She can't seem to get right. But all I can do is smile. It's all
Yeah.
minor stuff.
Yeah.
But this article she wrote contained a lot of quotes from our former guest, I'll try that again. From our former guest, T.J. Jenks,
Good.
the owner of Montague's restaurant here
Yeah.
in Greenwood. And that was a really interesting show where he laid it out from a business owner's perspective,
He
what's
did.
going on. He's been very active. So he said it was a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
So you want to hear some more details about it?
Yeah.
So this is Bill 3430, signed into law on May 12th, and it does a couple of things. It first of all, it does reform how liability is assigned
Yeah.
in drunk driving cases. One proposal that was initially floated was the jury had to pick the percentage. You know, this bar was 30% responsible, that venue was 80% responsible, whatever the numbers were.
Yeah.
Instead, they just said, look, let's go with the 50% level. So now the plaintiff must prove that a venue was more than half responsible for the DUI,
Yeah.
for the accident, and anything else. So you have to cover that threshold.
Okay.
Again, that's better than 5%
It is.
and still being liable for the full amount.
It is.
Now you have to hit 50% to get the full liability.
Yeah.
So there's that. Also, there's more burden placed on the intoxicated driver themselves. So what used to happen is the driver may have been uninsured.
Yeah.
The driver may not have had any money, so they'd go after the restaurants
Yeah.
and said, all right, you got $1 million, I'll go after you.
Yeah.
This kind of forces the attention to go back to the driver, saying we are going to assign blame to the driver.
Yeah.
Whether they can pay or not, they're going to have a percentage of responsibility here. So I think that's good. There's also some discounts that are being offered. So now the current law, as it was written, says they had to have $1 million liability policy. And that's a lot for the insurer. Well, if you get training, you get certifications.
Okay.
You're only open during certain amounts of the day. You
Yeah.
only have a certain percentage of alcohol versus food. A whole bunch of different conditions can lower the coverage that's required.
Okay.
So that way, a wild rural bar that just does, a bike bar that does nothing but alcohol would have one set of rules, while a family restaurant that just may happen to have some alcoholic drinks on their menu has a different set of
Yeah.
liability that they require. So I think these are all things that are very reasonable,
Yeah.
very rational. The ones who are not happy about it maybe are the trial lawyers who try to get the most money, of course.
Of course.
But even this bill passed unanimously in the House. So before any House member decides to take full credit for making this go through, remember,
Yeah.
everybody was on board.
Yes.
Okay. And it's over. It's about time. The Senate was being difficult about it, but they're now on board and the governor has signed. The only downside I can see, and this is a point that TJ made, is that this law does not go into effect until January 1st. And so TJ says, that's a long time from now. You know, the bars and restaurants are still going to suffer between now and then. So why couldn't we make it effective July 1st? I don't know what the rationale is, but it goes into effect January 1st of 2026. And the other thing is that while the insurance responsibility, I should say the level of insurance you have to carry could be lower, that's not going to force insurance companies to necessarily lower their rates or get back into the market.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of a hope here that by easing the restrictions a bit, that will bring competition back into the state. It's not a guarantee, nor is it a guarantee that it'll happen on day one of 2026. It may take another year or two for the market to settle. But we're glad to see that has finally made it. And God, I hope we don't have to talk about this again. Right?
I read Daniel Gibson's, he's representative for District 12, his email that comes out. He goes through, yes, this bill did pass, it's signed into law, and his last statement, he brings up good points like you've already mentioned, things that we can definitely stand behind and support, right? Then he says, the South Carolina House Republican Caucus is proud to stand with our small businesses and deliver real, lasting reform. And I went, whatever.
Yeah. Again, this is taking credit for voting for something that he was not involved in any committee.
No, child. Somebody told him.
Also took too long to get to this point, by the way, to be quite honest. This has been an issue for going on 6-7 years now.
Yep.
And the fact that everybody voted for this, he's going to say it's the Republican caucus that did it.
That's what he said.
Get out of here.
That's what he sent out.
Get out of here. Again, I guess politics and lying just go hand in hand, and I was never good at that. I just was not good at that. The other news item that I wanted to cover, the last news item, as a matter of fact, before we get to our guest, is an update on the Curtis Loftis situation.
Okay.
And you think we can't talk enough about this guy? We might as well just call ourselves Black, White, and Loftis in the South, because that's a topic that apparently occurs in every one of our episodes.
Only if you'll add a line for us in the budget.
Right. Well, the kind of to close the book on this one, and I'm not going to go through the whole history, but Curtis Loftis was voted on by the state Senate to be removed from office due to a couple of reasons. One, mismanagement of money. Second, lying in front of Senate in testimony. And then third, threatening to reveal sensitive state data where it actually had to get SLED and the governor involved to stop him from doing that.
Yeah.
So any one of those three things should be removable or grounds for dismissal. So the state Senate voted 33-8 this month to remove him. 33-8. That is huge.
Yeah.
So now it has to be voted on by the House, but the House has declined to take this up. The House has said, and we're not even talking about this year. I don't think they're going to bring it up at all. The Speaker of the House basically said, we're going to let the voters decide. It's their job. And no, there is oversight responsibilities that they have just given up.
Yep.
They said, we don't need to do oversight. We're going to let the people
how
do
will
it.
the voters decide if there's no one opposing this individual?
Right. I may have to run for state treasurer just to oppose this guy.
Somebody got to, because if not, he's going right back in, and that's not the voters' decision. It was you were chosen because there was no competitor.
He acts like he had the mandate of the people.
Yeah.
I bet you interview 9 out of 10 people, they don't know who he is.
No.
And if they know who he is, it's because of this $1.8 billion goof up.
That's it.
That's what he's known for. Then he has the balls to get on and write the following. This is Curtis Loftis. He issued this statement. I am grateful for the House's leadership decision today to choose the people's business over political theater. I feel sure that South Carolinians are thankful that they are the first priority. Dude.
Who wrote that?
Him. This
No,
is his
no,
own
I'm
work.
saying I understand that he is saying
okay.
that, but I'm wondering who helped him write that.
Right. He may have written it himself. This is the kind of grandstanding he does on a normal basis.
That's ridiculous.
He says, I am ready to turn my focus back to doing the people's work to stabilize our state's financial system. By the way, we're under federal investigation
We
by
are.
the FEC. And put this unfortunate chapter of fighting baseless claims, nothing baseless, all evidence,
Responding to an audit or ineffectiveness in your role.
by a few politically motivated senators, 33 to 8. So again, a completely out of touch statement.
Yeah.
And he really thinks that he is governor or senator. He's just the damn treasurer,
That's
a
it.
position really nobody knows a thing about. And he only got in that role because he had an R next to his name, but otherwise nobody knows who he is.
Yep.
So anyhow, our friend and former guest Representative Heather Bowers said the following.
Yeah.
She posted on Facebook with a quote from the author Margaret Atwood. The quote was, ignoring isn't the same as ignorance. You have to work at it. So you have to work at ignoring, which is what the House is doing. And then she wrote, and this is now Heather speaking, regardless of what party you represent in our state House, you all had to work really hard at ignoring this catastrophic failure for our state. The story is not over, and I truly believe the rule of law and accountability will prevail.
Yeah.
And in the comments, she added, unfortunately, there are some in my own caucus who didn't believe in holding him accountable either.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a bombshell. I would like to know the names of Democrats who did not support ousting this treasurer for what he has done
Yeah.
and his failure to serve in that role.
Wow.
It wasn't just that you don't like him. He's a very unlikable individual,
Yeah, it wasn't that.
but it was his job performance, and there they truly do have the
In
oversight.
no other job could you screw up that massive
Right.
and remain employed.
Now, before we leave Curtis Loftis, there's actually a positive spin on this that I want to add, a kind of a good note. Because another name that kept getting brought up in all this was Comptroller General Brian Gaines.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Comptroller General Brian Gaines, Comptroller is an elected office, I believe, and the previous Comptroller General, Richard Ekstrom, resigned
Did.
as part of this stuff came out, and the governor appointed Brian Gaines to this role. And Brian has done some more digging and worked to clean things up, and he's been involved in all the meetings, et cetera, et cetera. He came to Greenwood recently.
He
Did you know that?
Yep, he was at Piedmont Tech.
He was at the graduation of Piedmont Tech as the commencement speaker. Now, first of all, what does a comptroller do? You have any idea?
What do they do?
Isn't it accounting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had to go.
You knew
I had to go Google it as well.
Yeah.
You know, the comptroller. I mean, in business, you know of comptrollers, but a comptroller oversees the accounting and financial reporting procedures of an organization. The treasurer does something different. What's the treasurer do? Who knows?
Just
I guess
log
they're in
it.
charge of the bank accounts
Yeah.
and investments and so on, but the two have to work together. It's all part of the finance team. So he's the comptroller general and kind of the last position I would think to invite as a commencement speaker. Like you want somebody who's kind of a little more boisterous, or you know, the comptroller general. Why not hire accountant Ed, you know, from down the hall? But it turns out that he gave an amazing speech,
Oh, cool.
one for the ages, and directly talked about the scandal and what the Piedmont Tech students can learn from it. So I want to play a few clips from Comptroller General Brian Gaines. Let's
Okay.
listen.
Thank you for this opportunity to share in this defining moment of your life. I am honored to be able to share just a few life lessons with you on this day of your celebration. Typically, at a college graduation, the invited speaker stands up and talks about how perfect things will be after leaving this institution, how all days will be spectacular, and how your career will be perfect and free from all flaws. Well, I'm not a typical speaker, so let me be honest with you. Things will not be perfect, and you will make mistakes. But what if I told you that some of the best things that will happen in your life will start with a mistake? Now, I'm not talking about small mess-ups like spilling a cup of water on your computer when finishing a final assignment.
That's a big mistake.
And having your computer crash and
Oh.
losing that assignment. Hopefully that didn't happen to any of you. But what I'm talking about is a real mistake, like failing a class, picking the wrong major, getting fired from a job, or in the state's case, making a $3.5 billion accounting mistake. See, many of you may have heard there's been a little bit of drama going on in Columbia the last 2 or 3 years about a series of accounting mistakes. 3.5 billion one year, 1.8 billion the next. Now let me be clear, both of those occurred before I assumed this office.
Disclaimer.
Before I accepted this office, the state of South Carolina discovered a pretty significant error within our state's financial system. An error that shook the public's confidence and raised real, serious questions about oversight, transparency, and government accountability. The headlines were not nice, the criticism was fair, and the consequences were and still are very real. So, why would I talk to you about this at your college graduation? It's because I want to honestly tell you about something that I think we as a society don't do enough to those of you just starting out. You will make mistakes. The beauty about a mistake is they don't have to define you, your careers, your leadership, or even your lives. We are not defined by how many mistakes we make, but we are defined by how we respond to them.
That is a wise individual, and you really ought to hear and watch the full speech, and a link to that will be in our show notes.
Okay.
But I can listen to him all day. That is a man of integrity we just listened to, a man with obvious intelligence and soft-spoken, not worrying about self-aggrandizing or being flowery language. It's just, here's the facts, here's some life lessons, and here's reality.
A valuable one.
Valuable. And I could not think of a better commencement speaker that I would want at one of my kids' graduations in the future.
Good job.
Brian Gaines, thank you very much, and I really hope to hear more from you beyond the comptroller. Can you find another job to run for? You know, be a House rep, be a state senator, be a governor.
Maybe a treasurer.
Treasurer? Oh, my God. Why would I have never have thought of that?
That's why I'm
What
here.
if he ran for treasurer?
Let's make a note.
Can we start a writing
Are you texting Heather Bauer over there?
Right. We don't want to encourage that just yet.
Yeah, we do.
We do?
We do. Say, Heather, just you got Brian's number.
Won't you tell
Nudge
him
him.
that we want him to run?
And then watch Curtis Loftis runs for comptroller. Actually, there was a law not too long ago. I don't know if it got passed or not, but they were looking to make the comptroller general an appointed position rather than an elected position. Today it's elected.
Yeah.
At least I think it still is elected. But you know, people don't know who the treasurer is. They know the comptroller general even less.
Yeah.
And that Richard Ekstrom guy, I voted for him because he was the only guy on the ballot.
He's
and
the only one.
Never said anything nasty. So why not? So I think that's a good idea. Gaines for treasurer. I'm going to work on the logo tonight. I want to be good at this.
So you get the logo together and send it to Heather.
Yeah, I think I like
Say,
that
just,
idea.
Just pass this on to him in case he was
Anonymously.
Yeah.
In fact, here's a printout. Just drop it on his desk. Just anonymously drop it. Get that thought going.
Hope you're not busy. Oh goodness.
Well, it is our absolute delight and pleasure to introduce formally our guest for today's episode, Ms. Cynthia Halpin Brown. She is the alternate executive committee woman for the Greenwood County Democratic Party, but that's not why she's here. She's here for a different reason, a very exciting reason.
Yeah.
But we'll come to that in a second. But Cynthia, before we get to know you in the political realm, tell us a little bit about you personally. Where did you come from? What do you do? What are some nuggets that you want people to know about you?
So I grew up in Nebraska, and then went to University of Nebraska. So I'm a Cornhusker.
You look like a Cornhusker.
I do, don't I?
You do.
Yeah.
Typical.
Actually,
Hold on. I put in ChatGPT. Draw me a picture of a Cornhusker, and your face came right up. It really did.
And then I'm the smallest one in my family too. So I'm from like corn-fed big people. So after college, I ended up in California. I graduated from UCLA with my degree in social welfare. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker in California, here in South Carolina, and in Florida. So, and I will tell you, each of those different states it's a slightly different term, but same, licensed clinical social worker.
Yeah.
And so I've lived in Greenwood about a little over 3 years.
What brought you to Greenwood from California?
So we were actually, my husband and I were living in Florida.
Okay.
And when COVID hit, he was able to work from home. I was not. I was doing direct services, so was still seeing people in person. But it gave us the opportunity to think about future plan of retiring. And he has always wanted to live on a lake. So we're here out at the lake in Hodges. And so that's
Lake
how we...
Greenwood is a very popular destination. So you're one of those that moved for the lake and retirement life.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
It was the lake and then self-regional, because we looked at other places and what they called a hospital was not a hospital. It was kind of like a fancy urgent care.
Okay.
So it was like, okay, if we're going to be living here for the rest of our lives, we want some solid medical care available.
Yeah.
And so that, plus uptown and, having some arts, having Greenville very close. And then we have family in Georgia. So that was a nice plus, too.
Well, we're very glad to have you. And I remember meeting you for the first time at a Democratic Party meeting. And you had started to offer to create something called Liberal Rocks. Do you remember that?
I remember those rocks.
I don't create them. I distribute them.
Distribute. So you would, what is that whole thing? Maybe remind me.
So there is, you can probably go to liberalrocks.com. If I wanted to take the time and dig through my bag, I'm sure I have a few in there. But there is a woman who creates these little tiny flowers on one side. And then on the other, she has different slogans and sayings, and you can purchase them from her.
And then you throw them at Republicans as they walk by? What?
You plant positive seeds.
There you go.
Okay.
You hand them off to people. You leave them places where people are walking.
Nonviolent.
Yes,
okay.
nonviolent.
Yes, where people are walking, they can pick them up and keep them. There was a whole trend a while ago where people would paint rocks and leave them out for people.
Oh, my kid did that all day. Just painting rocks, leaving them, and then people would take pictures and put them on social media.
Yeah.
Greenwood Rocks, it was called.
Yeah.
I think they still do it.
I think so too.
They probably do. So I think this came possibly from there.
Okay.
But
Well, that's really neat. And then I also know that you have been active in recent years with Moms Demand Action. Talk about that organization and your involvement there. What is that about?
So I started my involvement with Moms Demand when I was living in Florida. There were just some horrific tragedies that happened with Pulse started it. The massacre that was there.
That was in Orlando, if I'm not mistaken. Right.
Yes. And so when we lived in Central Florida, so then we also had the massacre. How come I can't think of Marjorie Stoneman?
Stone Douglas?
Yes. The that happened in Parkland, and so I was in Florida at that time, and it was just, just hard to see this, and knowing that there are some very simple steps that can be taken to reduce gun violence. The use of locks. Here in South Carolina, there is an amazing number of weapons stolen from cars. Like, it's one weapon every 9 minutes. So there certain things, just keeping guns out of people who shouldn't have weapons. And then I also have a perspective as somebody who's worked most of my career in mental health. Mental health is often used as a scapegoat when there are mass shootings, when really if people don't have such easy access to guns, that's going to cut down on mass shootings. You can get gun locks. They're available for free all over. Most law enforcement agencies will give those out. We know with our veterans, if just because there's been so much research done with veterans attempting to kill themselves, that little bit of time that it may take to open a safe, to take off a lock, that is enough time. And I know that from my experience, my professional experience, that people who are not veterans, the same thing. You make a time distance between the thought of killing yourself and that lethal means saves lives.
Any medical emergency, seconds are always a make or break. I mean, everything's seconds, whether it's a mental health emergency or physical medical emergency, those seconds are always precious. Going back to your stolen weapons statistic, the last statistic I'm looking at right now has South Carolina ranked 7th worst in the nation for stolen weapons. Surprise, surprise.
And we just passed the open carry.
Right. And so these common sense ideas apparently have no infringement on the Second Amendment, does not affect your right to bear arms, but to legalize or legislate responsible ownership certainly is, I think, a very fair thing to do. And you were instrumental in getting us a keynote speaker for our banquet last year, Ms. McFadden.
Yes.
Right? And she was amazing.
She was amazing.
Have you kept any correspondence with her since?
We briefly after.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I keep thinking like, oh, I need to.
Well, let this be
to
an incentive
contact
to
her.
do it again.
That
'cause
might be.
She was a great woman, incredible woman.
Yeah.
And she gave me a wonderful gift, which I cherish. She gave me a bracelet that she wore when she talked at the Democratic National Convention.
Oh, wow.
If you look at the video of her speaking, she was wearing quite a few, like she planned out what she was doing as far as those extra number of bracelets. And so, every once in a while I see it, I'll wear it. I'm kind of hesitant to wear it, right? Because it's one of those things like if it breaks and the beads go, there's no replacing it.
Yeah.
But it's
Well,
still
I'm sure that's nice, but she gave me a sock that she wore at the convention. Wow. She gave me her left sock.
Bill.
You're never going to lose that, are you?
I'm wearing it right now, as a matter of
my
fact.
God.
I wear it all the time. I haven't taken it off since that banquet last November.
Well, you should immediately.
You think that? I think so? Okay. Right now, here, while we're recording?
Well, no.
No, when
Once
you get
you're
home.
home.
Once you're home. And get it cleaned so you can wear it for the wedding.
Yeah.
Well, Cynthia, the reason why I invited you, and to be fair to Jamil here, I invited her just yesterday. Right? So yesterday evening, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
I asked Cynthia, would you mind coming on the next afternoon and recording with us? And she did not even hesitate. She said yes.
Oh, wow.
And so thank you very much on such short notice. I couldn't think of a better topic to bring up because something happened for the first time in little old red Greenwood, South Carolina that hasn't happened in years.
Yeah.
What am I referring to, Cynthia?
You're talking about the amazing sign waving rally that we had yesterday on the corner of 72 Bypass and Montague.
Yes, you organized a protest.
Yeah.
First one that I've seen here since the Black Lives Matter movement of, what was it, 2020, 2019, around that time. But there's been nothing since. And even in this very, I'll call it volatile political situation as we're entering into our 5th month of a Trump presidency, you felt the time was right and it's like, we need to be out. And you're seeing these protests happening all over the nation, even in other big cities in South Carolina. But for Greenwood to have, that is something. So I'll tell you, it shook things up.
Yes,
it shook
there's
things
been
up.
a very interesting response.
That's a good way to describe it.
I mean, the local paper, the Index Journal, wrote a small article, maybe 5 paragraphs, nothing big, published it online on Facebook. And as of now, it's had over 1,000 comments.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing else that the Index Journal has ever published has generated that much conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're even aware of that.
I am not aware of that.
Most of the comments, or most of their articles, just get ignored.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe 1 or 2 comments. We've got over 1,000 so far, and it's continuing. And it's back and forth. It's nasty. It's reinforcement. It's people, it is, you have sparked the debate of one end of the political spectrum to the other.
Yeah.
I don't know if any minds are being changed, but you're at least sparked something. And to me, it showed that opposition is alive. Where otherwise they were just thinking maybe it was underground or not enough to be significant. But how many protesters were you able to get out there yesterday?
I think we had between 25 and 30.
Okay.
I did not my best job of having people sign. Like I started off really well. I wanted to get people's information, so I had them sign, a sign-in sheet, and then we were on each side of the street, and that intersection is a challenge to cross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I saw the members who came out and protested, and there are some octogenarians in that group, and I just can't see them crossing the busiest roads in Greenwood. This intersection is the busiest intersection in the county. The busiest for a radius of almost 100 miles. It's the busiest intersection. You could not have picked a better spot for visibility.
And time to be there.
Yeah.
So if you think of the time frame that you all were there, that increased, I think, the flow. So you were going to be very, very visible at that time.
Of course, one of the stupidest comments was, didn't they have anything better to do on a Saturday? I'm like, well, is there another day? Is there another day or time that we should be out there?
Yeah.
So I had some wise counsel not to read the comments. So
That's great, because I have them all here for you.
Yeah,
We'll cover them
I disregarded that and started reading through them. And then at some point was like, okay, I need to stop, because it really was just back and forth.
Yeah.
But there are a few people I responded to because it was just so reinforcing and just so positive.
Mm-hmm.
People were like, oh, I wish I would have known, and some other positive comments. But one of them where I'm not going to respond, but it was like, couldn't you be out volunteering doing something else? And one of the things I had was thinking is like several people that were there had been volunteering earlier in the day, and they actually didn't arrive when we started at 11 because they were finishing up volunteer work somewhere else and then came over.
They were working
after.
at the Miracle League, working with disabled and specially abled children to give them a morning of baseball, and being buddies. And they went directly from there to the protest to continue. So it really is ironic. They would. It brings assumptions up that are completely wrong.
There were so many assumptions from that. And I spent my time. I did not read the Index Journal's article. I did not. I went immediately to the comments section.
Oh.
And that is where I spent my time. And in that section is where I was able to organize the post. And that kind of led to my post. In there, their responses, those that were negative, those responses can be grouped into 3 sections. Mm-hmm. They were tremendously leaning towards ageism, classism, and sexism. And I went, and I'm looking at the profile pics from the people who are making these comments, and buddy, I don't know if they know it or not, but they fit into each one of those groups. But they were straight bashing a wonderful opportunity, and I kept going, so freedom of speech only applies if somebody is saying what you want them to say.
If it's a Trump rally, you have freedom of speech.
You get all the time you want, and
Right.
good job. And then you attack from this, they was attacking the Index Journal, and I went, well, the Index Journal is doing what it's supposed to do in this situation. There are articles that they may write and news that they share that maybe I don't agree with, but that is the role. So you have to share what is news. And I'm looking at this group of people who are going through with the negative comments, and I'm going, this to me is again coming from a place of fear. These are individuals who don't want others to see that there is opposition here in Greenwood and that all Greenwood people don't believe and support Trump. And now that people have seen that, oh my goodness, there's a group of people who don't like Trump. Mm-hmm. And they don't fit that normal description. Now I believe people are a little uneasy. So what you read in the comments is coming from a place of fear and intentional ignorance.
Well, let me read a couple of these intentional ignorant posts because I think they're fun.
Maybe I'll respond in the way I want it to.
I want to hear your opinion on some of these comments. The first one wrote, I wonder how much money they're getting to stand there holding a sign that they don't even know what it says. So is that true, Cynthia, that you were holding signs that A, you didn't know what they said, and B, you were standing there and getting paid to do it?
You know how I want to answer that question, which is like, of course I didn't know what was on the sign.
Right?
And we got paid cash.
Did George Soros hop out of a bus, hand you some signs with cash, and told you where to stand?
It was a bag of money.
Yeah?
Just like you see on the cartoons.
I thought that was a lie, but you're saying it actually happened. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Somebody else laughed and said, 24, which is how the newspaper reported it, sounds better than 24. So what does sound bigger, 24 or the number 24? That's an important math question. Which is greater?
I actually thought it's not which is greater, but I think what sounds greater is the 24.
Right. I hear 24, I'm thinking eggs, right? But
Yeah.
24, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, would you want 24 people crowded in the bedroom with you? I mean, that's a lot of people.
But the bottom line is they're equal.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it doesn't matter what it sounds like, person who wrote the comment. The bottom line is 24 is 24.
So here's another comment. I wonder if you include this in your ageism bucket. Quote, it's sad to see the way the media has warped these elderly people's minds. This administration is exposing the most corruption that anyone could have dreamed of, and they are mad about it. It's just sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, that second sentence, I actually can agree with. This administration is exposing the most corruption
That's
that
valid.
anyone could have dreamed of, and they are mad about it. I raise my hand because I've seen so much corruption in this
Yeah.
administration.
Yeah.
Makes me mad.
Yeah.
I mean, someone did have a sign that I'm paraphrasing. I did know what it said, though, at the time when I was reading it. But it basically said, I'm too old for this crap.
Yeah.
That's a good
Like,
one.
I've done this already once in my life. I
Yeah.
don't want to be doing it again.
Yeah.
And then the last comment I captured was the one with the 8647 sign should be questioned.
But you had a good response.
Well, I want to know, do you believe that that person should be questioned? And what would that question be?
Really, what would the question be? No, that person does not need to be questioned any more than any of us there could be questioned, because we did have people, which was awesome. People pulled in and parked and came over and talked to us to get more information. So yes, start some conversations, but
That's
there is
wonderful.
no need to for her to be questioned.
Gosh.
Yeah. I want to roll back a little bit before we talk more about the protest itself. But where did the germ of this idea come from for you? When did you start thinking about holding one here in Greenwood?
It's probably been a couple months.
Wow,
ago.
long time.
So, and I will tell you, I would attribute the whole idea of doing it to Brevard Democrats down in Florida, Brevard County. When I was down there, like, we would be out on corners with signs with Brevard Democrats as well as individual candidates, and then also with Moms Demand Action, all of that. So going to an event, a rally that happened in Columbia, really made me start thinking, like, okay, I drove to Columbia. How many people are not going to drive to Columbia?
Right. You and Tori and some others we know were driving to Greenville, to Columbia, and attending their rallies. So you're saying, time we hold our own.
Yes. And really my, I guess, goal with the rally was to let other people know that there are people here in Greenwood that are not supportive of what the current administration is doing.
So how did you go about organizing it? Did you have to get permits? Did you collaborate with anybody? What's kind of the mechanic? Let's say that there's another small town in South Carolina that is inspired by what has been done here in Greenwood. What are some of the steps you would advise them to follow? Because I'm guessing this is the first one you've personally organized.
It is.
So
Very
what
much
are some of
so.
the
You did a good
learning?
job with it, though.
What are the
Thank
learning
you.
lessons you would take from this?
So I really did not want to run afoul of the law, right? I wanted to make sure that that wasn't an issue. So I reached out to the city manager and spoke with a great person there who I kind of told her what was going on, and we went back and forth with some phone calls with her researching on her end, and it kind of came down to where we were planning to have it. If we were not soliciting and we were not handing out anything, we did not need a permit. And so that really also influenced what we did,
Okay.
because not having a permit was like one less thing to do. And I didn't really explore it, but I was like, ooh, permits seem like they could take some time.
Yeah.
So
And cost money and,
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
so it was like, okay, good. We got a place. We got, we don't need a permit. And that was people who showed up before they showed up and when they showed up had that question for me, which I was like, I'm so glad I have an answer for you.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got answers. So then it was like picking the date. And it was one of those things where, when you're planning something, you want more time between now and when that event happens. But then it's like, you know what, there's never going to be a right time.
Yeah.
Right? We all know 4 other things that were going on yesterday. There's 4 other things going on next Saturday and the Saturday after that.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where it's like, here's the goal. Let's get this going so that people know. Because the longer individuals are sitting around living their lives thinking that they're one of the few that are struggling or thinking like this is not normal, I didn't want that. I want people to know, no, there's other people around that recognize this is not normal. This is not what should be happening.
And you didn't do this in isolation. You partnered with the 50-51 movement. Is that correct?
Yes, and they were extremely helpful.
What did they offer in the way of assistance here?
So someone to talk to almost at any time, and some guidance and referrals.
Because I know Cynthia asked me, and I just shrugged my shoulders. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never organized a protest, so I have no experience. You contacted this movement who has a South Carolina chapter and have organized protests elsewhere in South Carolina, and they were able to give you valuable advice.
Yes. So I have the representative that I worked with, I have her phone number. We were messaging back and forth. She referred me to ACLU so that I was able to request to have an observer. We didn't actually get an observer, but went through that process. So in the future, I know that that's a
so
thing that
nobody
can
was
happen.
there to record the beatings you received and the police
just
arrests. It was just you guys. Okay. Well, let's actually. I joke about that, but was there any nervousness about safety or violent responses, or maybe not violent, but maybe aggressive reactions from passerbys?
There definitely was concern about that. The one other thing I wanted to say about the 50-51 is they developed our logo.
And the poster.
The poster. So we had that. I think it looked great. Several people had some input on what that looked like as the final. We added the rain or shine, given what our weather has been like.
I also saw that you added nonpartisan event, which I thought was very important. It wasn't sponsored by the Democratic Party or any individual organization. It truly was a grassroots protest.
Yeah, and if you read through the comments, a lot of the comments say, oh, the Democrats, they have nothing to do, or they're crying, or they're whining. And I thought that was one of those assumptions that were being made. Nowhere in there did you see somebody that said this whole group is from the Democratic Party. This was a group of individuals who were fighting for the rights of others and themselves. And what they did not need in order to make it an effective event was a label. And I think that was the thing to take away from that. But when you have people with underdeveloped thought processes, or people who just don't want to admit what is really wrong, you'll see them look to use groups or affiliations to harm individuals instead of strengthen those individuals. So I think that was amazing that you all did that. Not attached to a party, but you were attached to a purpose. And that is what so many of us need to do in order to fight what is wrong. Focus on the purpose and not the party. So, thanks.
So let's come back to the danger zone then. Did you wear a bulletproof vest? Did you?
Did not. Didn't I even think about it?
The way I would like you to answer this is start with your expectations or your worries beforehand, and then share how it actually turned out afterwards.
So my worry beforehand, I guess my worry was that someone would throw some beverage on me as they were driving down the street. And there's a Starbucks right there, and there's Chick-fil-A. Okay. So those were the two, and I was like, I hope it's not hot coffee.
Yeah.
That did not happen. There were some people made comments, but really with the volume, the sound from the traffic, you couldn't really hear them. And I would translate them in my head and be like, oh, they're telling us to have a good day. Oh,
That's
thank
what
you.
that finger means. It's a have a great day finger.
like it.
That's the your number one finger.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
We started to identify honks, whether it was like an angry honk or a yay, glad you're here honk, and then the please make a right on red honk, which is a different honk too, which is followed by the person yelling out the window, turn.
Oh, okay.
But, there were comments, there were people who had some angry honks, but we also had some really positive responses from people. One woman in particular, because it was when I had changed from one side of the street to the other, she had gone past us, and then a little while later, I see her that she's back, which that makes sense. It's a very busy intersection.
Yeah.
People are, but she had money that she was trying to give us.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, she made a special effort to get back here. And we weren't taking money.
That was Mrs. Soros?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Paying those protesters.
Right.
But
well, that's great. Speaking of the signs, we'll have pictures of some of the signs and the people available in our show notes. But what were some of your favorite signs that you saw that people brought?
So
I'll share with you mine afterwards. But what was one of your favorites? What did you recall seeing?
there was one, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like continue cancer research, or like don't stop funding cancer research. And even now, like that one, I was like, oh, that's it, like right there. And the woman holding it, you know, like I didn't know her story, but I was like, yeah, that's what we're here for, because the actions that the Trump administration are taking are impacting people daily. And some of the there were a couple other signs that were artistically amazing.
There was a pair that I saw about PBS that one was a picture of Big Bird, but the other had Grover on a cross.
No way.
Yeah, that's what it looked like to me. I scanned by it quickly, but it looked like, you know, Grover hanging. Maybe I got it wrong. I'll have to go back and look at that picture.
Oh, they hung Grover.
But like I said,
no, Grover wasn't hung.
No?
Grover was holding two signs.
Oh, okay. I skimmed the picture very quickly.
Don't skim again.
Grover,
but you get where I came from. His arms were outstretched, looked like they were being held. But
his
Grover
arms were being held. Grover
holding
was
signs. Okay.
He was holding one sign
it's
for
a slightly
Sesame Street.
Different message.
Yeah, and one for PBS.
Thank you, Grover.
Wow.
Wow. So the don't stop researching cancer, or the cancer research of those type signs that are being held up are Grover or Big Bird, that is, you know, learning educational things. And you still have people that are typing comments like "Go home."
Go home.
Yeah. These hateful libs.
It's like what do you do? Like one comment I'm gonna read. It says, "If I would have been out on that side of town at that time and saw these people, would have been visited by the police, because I would have pulled off and called dispatch. Anything that causes drivers to use their horns unless it is an emergency is wrong because of driver distraction. I would not even use my own horn." You took up all that space under that Index Journal post to type that foolishness.
Wow.
As if these people, see, here's what they don't understand. See, some people follow the law. I know this might be news to a lot of people, but you got some people who want to be law-abiding citizens. Mm-hmm. You figured out what you could do, what you were allowed to do, and that is what you implemented. But then you got this lady on here who actually think you just woke up one day and stood out there with signs and didn't even try to do the research. Mm-hmm. This is the kind of stuff that frustrates me. But this is the kind of stuff that somebody said, calm down, bro.
Which is kind of a good response to that.
Yeah, like just relax.
I'll share with you a positive version of this, though. So the comments under the newspaper article were mixed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I posted something very briefly on my personal Threads account. Like, who's on Threads, right? Mm-hmm. Remember, Threads is like the Facebook, Twitter spinoff there. And so I wrote just the following. My little red town of Greenwood, South Carolina, finally joined in on the anti-Trump protest movement today.
Yeah.
24 protesters caught the town by surprise, and boy, are the MAGA mad about it. So I just threw that out there. Now I only have like 200 some followers myself on Threads. It's not a big account. As I sit here right now, Jamil, I am looking at 7.5 thousand likes,
Wow.
300 shares, 157 comments on that little text post I made last night. It's not even been 12 hours.
Okay,
So-
so mine didn't get that. I posted as well, but
On
I don't do
Threads?
threads. I don't do
Okay.
threads. So I posted. I'm going to read it to you, but I'm going to let you say your thought first. Go, Cynthia.
Okay, I heard all the words you said there, but you said 7.5 likes.
7.5 thousand.
Yeah, thousand.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
1,000 likes.
Yeah.
1,000 likes. Yes, and
That's-
it's still growing because it wasn't that in the beginning.
Oh,
I got
I'm
chills.
sorry.
It's
As
still-
I'm sitting here, I actually just watched it go from 7.9K to 8K. It just happened on my screen.
So
So
listen.
this is truly what we call the viral message. And I think the important thing is that this happened in Greenwood.
Yeah.
The last place in South Carolina you'd expect something like Greenville, Columbia, Spartanburg. Okay. Little old Greenwood, no. And I said, if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. And I think
Yeah.
people are resonating with that.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you are able to, I'm going to read mine, but I'm glad that you're able to say like 8K and it's still growing, because that kind of confirms what I was trying to convey in my message. So I said, good job to the organizers of this nonpartisan display of activism. I note from the comments that there were those who thought that only Democrats were fighting this fight, but it was interesting that they weren't. And I said activism, which people forget. It takes courage, and it does not require explanation. So you didn't have to explain why you did any of the things that you did, but it took courage. And
But we
for
thank
that,
you. Otherwise,
thank
we
you.
wouldn't have a podcast episode.
Yeah, we wouldn't. I said observations can be misleading. For those who read the article, you must remember that activism is a layered approach. So don't get distracted by the numbers you see. There's always more. That's that 8K. And that's going to continue to grow. I'm proud to know some of these courageous souls personally. If you get a chance, read through the comments on the Index Journal's post to see classic examples of classism, sexism, and ageism, all of which are non-discriminatory. So we can all fit into those groups. This is why we must fight to protect people who could easily fit into those groups. Now, it's true activism when the rights you're fighting for are not necessarily yours. Like, you may not have been impacted by any of those things, but you know that human rights are rights for everyone, and that they should have that. So I said, continue to be considerate, empathetic, and passionate, because we appreciate you.
Aww.
Even if you saw 24 people, and this goes to all the people who wanted to have something to say, even if you only visibly saw 24 people, I need for them to understand that if you continue to multiply that 24, that's how much support you guys got behind you.
As we're sitting here, Jamil, your post likes just increased by 10%,
You
and
liked
the number
it?
of shares doubled.
You liked it, Bill?
I'm not saying one thing or another. I'm just watching the numbers here.
Any increase is a good increase.
So
there.
I want to end this discussion with one question, and this is a question that some in the Democratic Party leadership have asked, and I think it's a fair question.
Yeah.
What's the point? What's the point of protesting? I mean, I've asked that question. I remember during Trump 1.0, where you had the Women's March, right? Millions and millions of people from around the world flooded the streets like no other demonstration, I guess, since Vietnam War. I mean, this was incredible movement, and yet he served out his term. He did what he did. Now we got Trump 2.0, so I'm thinking, what's the point? But this particular activity has me rethinking that a bit, but I'm curious to think, what was the point? What's the outcome? What's the positive thing that came out of this that you thought it was worthwhile doing it?
I think the point is to let people here in Greenwood know they're not alone with their thoughts, that their concerns are shared by other people, and not just shared in quiet space, right? But people who will go and stand on a street corner. Like, we're willing to take action. One of the signs was the call 5 or 5 call, and had that information on it, which I thought was great,
Yeah.
because and it was written really well, big, so that anybody going by could see that and get that information to take, give people a venue to take action. But really my intent with planning this was to let people know they're not alone. And I think there is the opportunity at future events for that to get expanded on. But that's where I really wanted to start because, like you said, a little tiny blue presence surrounded by red, can feel really hopeless that things can't change, aren't going to change. So having that community and connection with other people. I mean, I will tell you, there were probably more of the thumbs up and the little honks, which we interpreted as friendly, than I expected.
Well, even if you are on the other side of the equation here, you have to look at this group and at least respect them for the bravery.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's easy when you are in a supermajority opinion, and especially one that's particularly aggressive and violent in their reactions to seeing these protesters. To be in the majority is easy. To be in the minority is hard.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that, Jamil?
Y'all know I always start, I say, okay, I don't know if y'all know this or not, but I'm black. So I know a little bit about that. But I do want to point out that article in the Index Journal is going to do a lot for the cause because I'm a part of other groups. And they've already, in those groups, I've seen a couple of them shared and say the next time that they do it, we're going down to join
that was
them.
the number one comment that I got in my post was, first of all, people saying, why didn't we know about this?
Yeah.
Why wasn't this promoted? It's like you're always going to get those remarks because no matter how many times you put it out there,
somebody's going to miss it.
You're not going to see it. And have you ever gone to a Democratic Party meeting? Have you followed any of the social media accounts?
Yeah.
Are you involved at all? If you were even following the 50-51 SC movement, you would have seen it. But maybe this becomes, being in the paper and getting shared like it is, becomes the catalyst to start to follow and start to get involved. And nothing but good things come out of this. Did you change anybody's mind as they were driving along the street? No.
Nope.
But have you empowered people to be more active in their communities and knock on doors and things like that in the future? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, with that, Cynthia, I want to sing your praises and thank you for coming out and doing this deep dive with us.
Yeah.
I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah.
Is there another protest scheduled for next weekend? What are we making this an every Saturday thing now? Is this your full-time job?
It's so tempting. And I did get asked that. They're like, so is this your job? And I was like, oh, wouldn't I love that? I would love to be like a community organizer. So no, it's not my full-time job. But I do know there are people who want to step up, want to help. There will be another event. We're just not sure of the date. So we have that going forward. And hopefully with that is some of the other organizations that are here in Greenwood and the surrounding areas will be participating in that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yay, Cynthia.
Is that the lyrics to the song?
No. Don't add it in there either. Don't add it.
Are
Too
there
late.
lyrics?
Too late. And that's a wrap for this episode of Black, White, and Blue in the South. Thank you, Cynthia, for making an outsized dent in our little Greenwood community.
Yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
amazing. We hope you enjoyed what you heard today. Please take a quick minute and leave us a rating and a review of this show. We really want to know what you think. If you do, we'll finally get those George Soros checks to the paid protesters to be released to our bank accounts. By the way, Cynthia, how much were you promised? What was the number floated?
$1,000.
$1,000. We can get those checks finally released and entered into our accounts. If you are a blue dot in a red sea, keep the faith. Keep up the hard work. Change only happens over many years of work and dedication. Our closing quote today comes from Elie Wiesel. He's a Romanian-born American writer, professor, political activist, Nobel laureate, and Holocaust survivor. He wrote the following: "There may be times when we are powerless to prevent injustice, but there must never be a time when we fail to protest."
I like
It's a
it.
good one.
That was a perfect one for this show.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Good job, Cynthia.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
The end.